InvestorIdeas.com podcast.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com podcasts. In today's podcast, I'm going to be looking at a few public company announcements from Astral Holdings Limited, trading on the CSE as XTRX, HEXO Corporation, trading on the TSX and NASDAQ as HEXO, Sundial Growers Incorporated, trading on the NASDAQ as SNDL, as well as Entourage Health Corporation, trading on the TSX Venture as ENTG, and the OTCQX as ETRGF. So first today, starting with HEXO Corporation, who announced that the company has achieved its goal to become carbon neutral by September of this year, offsetting 100% of its 2020 operational carbon emissions in addition to the personal emissions of its 1,200 employees. Now in June of 2021, HEXO embarked on a mission to counteract its carbon footprint through a partnership with Offsetters, which is a Vancouver-based organization that supports renewable energy and forest carbon projects across the world. Now, as a leading cannabis player in Canada on the path to becoming one of the top 3 global cannabis products companies, it was important for HEXO to offset investments and to have a global reach. Now, at home in Canada, HEXO is helping reduce old growth tree harvesting by supporting the Great Bear Forest Carbon Project, and this landmark project balances human well-being and ecological integrity through carbon finance and is the first carbon project in North America on traditional territory with unextinguished Aboriginal rights and title. Now, globally, HEXO is supporting 2 other carbon offset projects, a large-scale solar energy project in Asia and another forest conservation project in South America. Now, to achieve carbon neutrality, HEXO offset a total of 25,965 tons of carbon, 19,000 tons of operational carbon emissions, and 6,000 tons of their employees' personal carbon emissions. And if the top 100 Canadian companies pursued similar sustainability initiatives, it would be a significant contribution to Canada's role in combating climate change. At the start of the summer, we pledged that HEXO would not only become carbon neutral, but that we would also offset the personal carbon emissions generated by every one of our employees. Today, we're proud to say that we have achieved our goal, setting a new standard in sustainability for the industry, said HEXO Corp CEO and co-founder Sebastian St. Louis. Now, consumers and investors demand greater environmental and social integrity from companies, and we are proud to share our commitment to sustainability and support our consumers' ability to purchase products that align with their values. In addition to the carbon emissions, HEXO is also counteracting the use of plastic in its packaging, working alongside their primary packaging supplier Dimapac in conjunction with Plastic Bank. And HEXO has supported Plastic Bank's ethical recycling ecosystems and coastal communities, collecting and reprocessing ocean-bound plastics for reintroduction to global manufacturing supply chains. And in doing so, HEXO initially offset 63,000 kilograms of plastic, and by October of this year, HEXO will have supported the collection of an additional 8,000 kilograms of ocean-bound plastic, making it a total equivalent of 3.5 million plastic bottles stopped from entering the world's oceans. So HEXO has now achieved their carbon neutral goal set out earlier in the year. This was discussed also in a previous interview we did with Sebastian St. Louis back a couple months ago, where he did talk about their strategy of having a carbon offset and how important that was to the company. So now they have achieved that goal. Obviously, it's not the perfect scenario where they are actually reducing their carbon footprint, but more actually offsetting it by doing different initiatives. But that being said, still a much better strategy than most businesses in almost all industries are doing, where they're having no offset approach. So I do agree with Sebastian there when it says that if we did have every one of the large-scale producers or every one of the top companies within this industry all focusing on having an offset system for their carbon emissions, then this would be a big step forward for Canada as well as the rest of the world when it comes to combating climate change. That being said, again, you're not really seeing this initiative being followed through on many other companies. Most of them, again, have a very small green initiative, if any at all. So this does somewhat separate HEXO. And it'll be interesting to see if they can keep this up moving forward and how this sort of changes over time as they continue to scale upwards, because obviously HEXO has massively increased their footprint and increased their entire scale over the last year. So obviously moving forward, they will have a continued bigger and bigger project when it comes to having the offset of their carbon emissions. I assume they've planned for that and will probably again be embarking on new initiatives soon enough. But it is interesting to see that them as a company, they're one of the few companies that has focused on this very directly. And hopefully this does start a trend for other companies within the cannabis space, as that is one thing that's massively missing from the cannabis industry as a whole, is a focus on renewable or green initiatives, as this industry continues to produce a vast amount of waste, whether you're looking at packaging waste or just the simple biomass waste coming from cannabis production, which again, there's a few companies that are trying to deal with that, but still not a large scalable solution for any producers at the moment. Looking next at Sundial Growers Incorporated, who has now launched their Caviar Cones, which is the newest product innovation under the award-winning Top Leaf brand. The Forbidden Lemon Caviar Cones will be the first caviar cone product to hit the Canadian market, and this launch reinforces Sundial's focused innovation pipeline around premium inhalables in the Canadian cannabis market. Top Leaf's brand promised to deliver top-quality inhalable products to consumers in the premium cannabis segment, said Andrew Storter, President and Chief Operating Officer at Sundial. Now, in order to complete this preferred segment of the cannabis industry, product quality is absolutely vital. Top Leaf's Caviar Cones is the first of many high-quality, high-THC and flavorful products developed to satisfy even the most experienced cannabis user. Now, the launch of the Caviar Cone is not only a milestone for Sundial, but also represents the first product of its kind to launch in the Canadian cannabis market at large. Infused products have done exceptionally well within the American market, according to recent sales data from HEXO, which is a leading provider of data and analytics in the cannabis industry, and HEXO is deemed that connoisseur-infused products, which include Caviar Cones, as a segment to watch, as it has risen approximately 13% to 32% of all cone-type products in 2021, year-to-date in the U.S. The Top Leaf Caviar Cones are a carefully handcrafted, individually inspected blend of dried milled flower, dry sift hash, and full-spectrum winterized oil, resulting in a smooth smoke with a unique flavored experience, exceptional terpene profile, and guaranteed THC of 30% or higher. And Sundial's approach involves infusing processed whole flower with both hash and oil extract to ensure that even distribution throughout the entire Caviar Cone for an exceptional terpene profile and high levels of THC. And the Forbidden Lemon strain mixes the terpene-heavy Forbitos, the uplifting Blue Dream, and the fresh Lemon Haze and Florida Lemon strains. And additional strains will be available for consumers later this year. And they're available in a 4.5 gram rolled multi-pack. So, now having Caviar Cones within the Canadian market, I've talked a lot about these types of products being really dominant force within the U.S. markets that they're being launched into, whether you're looking at the Moon Rocks options or different infused cones. This is something that's been very much lacking within the Canadian market. Regulations have been a big slowdown on this, as well as sort of which product category this fits in has been somewhat in a gray area for the Canadian market. Obviously now things have been more clarified. So Sundial, with the launch of this, you could expect that a few other brands will follow with similar type of infused products soon enough. Again, we've seen pre-rolled blunts start to show up on the Canadian market that have done quite well. And within the pre-roll category, this is sort of the segment that's definitely missing right now in Canada, which is, again, having these infused connoisseur type items, which are obviously going to be in a different price point. But the expectation there is obviously people are willing to pay for the top quality. We've seen this with extracts. We've seen this with live resin. And live rosin, the same will definitely be said for these types of products. And it'll be, again, interesting to see how long it takes for a few other producers to start launching similar type of products. We've seen this in the past. As soon as one brand succeeds, you start to see similar products popping up in other provinces and other parts of the industry. I would expect the same to play out here, as this has been the type of product category that many producers have been working on. If they haven't been thinking about it already, I'm sure the possible success of Sundial's Top Leaf Caviar Cones will push them over the edge and actually have them launch their own products soon enough. Looking next at Entourage Health Corporation, formerly known as Weed MD Incorporated, who announced the Canadian launch of its acclaimed Mary's Medicinals transdermal patches. Now, Mary's Medicinals is the part of Mary's Brands portfolio and Bell Rock Brands Incorporated company, and as the exclusive manufacturer and licensed distributor of Mary's suite of products in Canada, Entourage launched Mary's transdermal patches in CBD, THC, and 1-to-1 formulations that will be available first to the company's Starseed medical patients, as of late September, and products are expected to expand into the adult use retail market later this year. Now, Mary's transdermal patches, when applied as a skin adhesive, act as a novel and discreet delivery method containing a THC, CBD, and/or a balanced 1-to-1 dosed formula, and are made with ingredients which are known to promote transdermal effects. With the launch of Mary's transdermal patches, we are taking a major step forward in offering our clients with unique cannabis delivery methods for their self-care journey, and more critically, could offer an alternative to debilitating opiate use with a portfolio of safe and regulated cannabis delivery systems, said Joseph Melee, Senior Vice President, Commercial, Sales, and Marketing. Now, our roots in medical run deep, and we are fully committed to the continued expansion of our medical portfolio that now includes over 40 SKUs of innovative products developed alongside forward-thinking partners to allow us to cater to a wide range of consumers seeking a discrete interface for cannabis consumption. So Entourage is producing Mary's medicinals cannabis products in-house at its Aylmer, Ontario-based extraction hub, using its own input biomass, and the company's product development extraction teams are using Mary's proprietary technology, which calls for extracting CBD, THC, and CBN to activate cannabinoid ingredients used to produce topical compounds and formulas for its award-winning balms and patches. So again, that will be launching first with their Starseed Medical dispensary, and then eventually planning on going into the recreational market within Canada. I've talked about transdermal patches and sublingual tabs in the past. Sublingual tabs have already been out on the market. You've seen them be semi-successful. I don't think any of them have really been hit the sort of distribution part as strongly as they could have. And so you've seen them only in limited supply in some medical areas, but you haven't seen them sort of mass adopted. Same with transdermal patches. They've been discussed. You've seen different companies developing these. Some have been successful within the medical markets they've been launched into in the past, but again, you haven't seen any sort of mass adoption. I do think that these will be well received with the medical patients they launch to within the Starseed medical community, and I do think that eventually, if these do get into the recreational market, they'll be well received there. It is going to be about consistency of the product, and probably there will be some difficulties when it comes to dosage limits. Again, I would expect that these will be better received within the medical market than they would in the recreational market. I don't think people are quite looking for low-dose THC transdermal patches. I think if anyone's looking for a transdermal patch of cannabinoids, they're going to be looking for a higher medical dose. So I don't know if this will quite translate into the recreational market, as I think that most people would probably prefer a beverage or an edible as opposed to a patch. And again, there's not really a need to use cannabinoids in a patch form, as in for someone to be coming off of cannabis. That's not really required. Cannabis doesn't have any sort of chemical addictiveness. So I think this will probably, again, do better in the medical market. The fact that they're aiming for the recreational market is interesting, but I don't think it'll be as well received there. In general, I do think that those types of cannabinoid delivery systems are, again, more of a dosage concern when you're looking at who they're going to be applying to. The people who are taking them for pain or for medical reasons aren't going to be taking 10 milligrams, and that would have to be sort of the final format needed if you wanted to sell that in the recreational market, which, again, I think would just be kind of a waste of time. Lastly, looking at Astral Holdings Limited, formerly known as Phyto Extractions, who announced it's entered into a share purchase agreement dated September 15th, where the company has acquired all of the issued and outstanding shares of Phyto Extractions from the shareholders of Phyto Extractions. Now, Phyto Extractions, the best-known brand in Canada, Cannabis Concentrates, was incorporated in 2019 into the province of BC and is engaged in the marketing and promotion of cannabis concentrate products in Canada under the cannabis regulations. Phyto Extractions licensed its intellectual property to Canadian cannabis license holders and collects royalties generated by selling cannabis consumer packaged goods to provincial distributors and retailers across the country. Now, Michael Forbes, Chief Executive Officer of Ad Astra, stated, "We're excited at the prospect of bringing the most prominent legacy brand into Ad Astra. We believe that the proposed acquisition of Phyto Extractions will add tremendous shareholder value, and Phyto Extractions currently holds a preeminent place in the regulated cannabis concentrate market owing to unparalleled brand recognition, quality products, market generation, and exceptional sales team. And as licensing agreements expire, Ad Astra intends to produce all Phyto Extraction products in-house and recognize full revenues resulting from the branded sales." So Ad Astra, which was formerly Phyto Extractions, now acquiring Phyto Extractions again. So kind of just going back to what they originally were. For Phyto Extractions, they have done fairly well within the province of BC. But again, when you're looking at the concentrate categories, you're seeing a lot more craft producers are still doing better within that space. So I wouldn't say that they are the top brand really ever in BC. They're doing fairly well within the certain price categories that they're competing in. But again, when you're looking at extracts as a whole, it's now become a pretty competitive space, especially within BC and most other provinces. But within BC, there's a lot of craft extractors at the moment. So you're seeing a lot of really nice diamonds and live resin and terpene slushes come out onto the market that are extremely high quality, and the price point continues to get lower. So Phyto Extractions kind of in a mid-level to low price point. They've done quite well. But again, I don't know if that'll consist or keep up over a long period of time. And it does kind of show, again, the general trend of a lot of these companies trying to regain some of their capabilities that they might have sold off or unpartnered with earlier in the year. Again, you're seeing a little bit more consolidation within the Canadian market as well as the US market. And Ad Astra sort of repurchasing Phyto Extractions does sort of suit that trend. That's all for today's podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.